Chapter 12. Into the Fire. Now, we finally caught up to the present. Or at least we've come to the events of just a few hours ago. I don't hear any more gunfire, Cali said. I'm guessing the Imperium or Holy Empire or whatever it is finally got control of the station. That's not your concern, the interrogator replied. What is your concern is the overwhelming evidence tying yourself and your co-conspirators to the theft of the flagship Stellaris and its illegal delivery to an enemy nation. You have undermined the Galactic Empress in a public fashion. The fact we've let you live this long is a mark of Her Majesty's merciful nature. Now, the interrogator placed his tablet on the table once more. There were 5 pictures on the screen. Dak Jabassim, Ruto Batorak, Tiki Pana, Van Beeren, and Okepi Inns Teb. Each image was clearly taken by Helperbot itself, their faces frozen as though in mid-conversation with a droid. This officer here, he's one of my people, but we have no record of him, the interrogator said, pointing at Okepi's photo. The name Okepi Inns Teb doesn't match any known service records. It's very curious. Now as for the others... The interrogator tapped each picture in turn. Ruto was easy to identify, he said, as most Alari women have disyllabic names. But these 3 men... Which one is which? Cali frowned. She refused to answer. Are all 3 of them native to Alaria? The interrogator pressed. This tall fellow looks like he may be void-born. Tell me more. Cali narrowed her eyes and tried to make her brain work harder. She was captured, a black bag put over her head, and then thrown in the back of a truck. The truck drove for about half an hour, then stopped. Cali was brought into this room and made to wait for several hours before the bag on her head was removed and the interrogation began. Very slowly, Cali started to understand this line of questioning. She looked up at the interrogator. Why are you pressing me so hard? Cali demanded. If you caught me, you must have caught Ruto as well. You heard her voice in the recording. She's still devoted to the Galactic Empress. She would have talked right away. She should be cooperating with you. Cali was bluffing. Sure, Ruto had been loyal to the Galactic Empress at the start of this adventure, but ever since she was freed from the brig, Ruto had stopped making outward displays of said loyalty. Cali watched the interrogator very carefully. The interrogator did the briefest of double takes. His eyes flickered to the tablet computer, then to Cali, then back again. He picked up the tablet and started tapping away at it while talking to her. Cali did not pay attention to anything the interrogator had to say. Instead, she focused her mind inward, to her cybernetic implants. Pay attention to me, the interrogator snapped. There's no point in using your implants. There is nothing for you to interface with in here. Everything is insulated and protected against hackers like you. Cali ignored him. She was not trying to interface with any of the tech in this building. She was searching for Ruto. Not enough time had passed for Cali's nanobots to leave Ruto's body. If she could establish contact with her microtech, Cali would get a better idea of the situation. For Cali, this frantic search felt a little like echolocation. A weak radio signal emanated from a transceiver embedded in Cali's brainstem. Then she listened for any kind of reply. After about 30 seconds, punctuated by the interrogator's demands, Cali's search got a result. She opened her eyes and looked the interrogator square in the eyes. You don't have Ruto, she declared. You don't have Dak. You don't even have Teak. You couldn't catch them. They got away. The interrogator was flustered now. He tried to regain control of the conversation, but a grainy video filtered into Cali's mind. The nanobots were showing Cali everything visible through Ruto's eyes. She, Ruto, was having an energetic conversation with Moriarty, one of the humans Cali had lived with during her youth. Moriarty scrunched his face and said something while slamming his fist into his palm. Ruto jumped for joy. Then, out of celebratory instinct, Ruto leaned forward and kissed Moriarty on the mouth. Cali felt a shock go up her spine as a tiny fraction of the kiss sensation reached her mind. She could just barely feel Moriarty's lips, as though Cali was kissing him in a dream. Cali snapped back to reality and resumed her stare-down with the interrogator. "So let me get this straight," Cali said. "You're asking me to ID my friends because you don't know where they are and you only have a general idea of what they look like from low-resolution helperbot photos. On top of that, the Empire, Imperium, whatever, clearly doesn't have full control of the station, which is why you're trying to make me cough up names instead of going hunting for them. Do I have everything right? Did I miss anything?" The interrogator was left speechless for the first time. He stared at her for a moment before there was a loud banging on the cell door. "Lieutenant Atek," said a Favarian voice. "We have a situation outside of the building. We must lock down immediately." Cali could hear a rumble through the walls. It was a different kind of rumble, though, not the kind produced by gunfire or explosions. The interrogator left the cell, leaving Cali alone, still handcuffed to the table. Using her implants, Cali looked out of Ruto's eyes once more. At least 150 members of the Manifesti were marching down the street toward the district jail. Ruto, Teak, and Dak were among them. A.J. Robinson and Moriarty joined them. The 6 rescuers were dressed in the same outlandish costumes as the Manifesti protesters, looking as though they were members of a celestial circus. Ruto was nervous. She was constantly looking around at several of the Manifestes. No, there was something wrong here. Several of the Manifestes were human, and they were wearing bulky jester outfits. Very bulky. Bulky beyond all reason. Oh. Some of the Manifestes were not Manifestes. Cali's eyes snapped open in a panic. "Minutemen!" she gasped out loud. 3 years ago, Cali had met a couple of Minutemen during her stay on Arcadia. The Minutemen were human insurgents with an anti-imperialist agenda. They wanted to throw off the Galactic Empress by force and were considered hostile by the Imperial military. When she became an Imperial officer, Cali received a briefing about them from military intelligence. She was generally aware of these people, but did not know any specifics. Blinking her eyes frantically, Cali tried to refocus on Ruto's vision. The Manifestes were gathering outside of the jail. They screamed and shouted, making their usual insane demands: parental rights for livestock, copyright protections for genetic code, and diplomatic representation for bacteria. But in the midst of all that, 4 Minutemen had broken off from the group. They were slipping away from the main group of Manifestes, reaching into their bulky jester costumes and pulling out compact submachine guns. One of the Minutemen looked back at Ruto and pointed at her. Cali opened her eyes, heart racing. She knew what was happening, had only seconds to prepare. She kicked her chair back and tried to stand up as best she could whilst handcuffed. Awkwardly leaning forward, Cali looked around, scanning the jail with her implants. Then alarms started to sound. Cali looked down at herself. She was still wearing her old Imperial officer's uniform. The past 3 months had not afforded her much opportunity to adopt a new wardrobe. Cali worried the Minutemen would consider shooting her on sight. No, Cali told herself. One of the Minutemen saw Ruto and said something to her. They've got to be working together. Cali had no choice but to wait and have faith in her comrades. She listened to the unfolding situation around her. Lieutenant Atek, her interrogator, was trying to convince another Favarian to go along with his plan. "The prisoner in this cell needs to be evacuated," he was saying. "She will lead us to the ones who masterminded the theft of our flagship." "It's a little late for that," said the other Favarian. "Those manifestes look like they're getting ready to storm the facility. We should hold in place and wait for reinforcements to get here. Once we beat them back, you can move your prisoner. Understood?" The voices were interrupted by a squawk from a handheld radio. "Multiple security sensors have been tripped. We have a breach. Protesters are inside the jail. We've got 50 of them in the processing center." "I copy," replied the other Favarian. "We're moving your way now. And are they using weapons? Are you in any danger?" "Negative to both," responded the voice on the radio. "They're just dancing." The voices trailed away into the distance. Now Cali really was alone. Straining and groaning, Cali tried to slip out of her handcuffs. A sharp pain shot up her wrists, causing Cali to cry out in agony for a few moments. When Cali paused to catch her breath, she heard a voice. "Listen, I heard an Alari." Cali froze. She wanted to call for help, but hesitated. Dak, Teak, and Ruto were trustworthy, but what about the Minutemen? In the end, Cali decided to take the risk. She rattled her handcuffs loudly and screamed, "Help! I'm in here! Help me!" There was a shuffling sound as people stacked up on the other side of the cell door. "Stand clear! We're knocking it down!" a human yelled. Cali scrambled as far to one side of the cell as she could, and a moment later there were two loud bangs as the door hinges were blown away. "Kick it in!" the human ordered. With a great crash, the cell door was knocked into the room. It smashed into the metal table and came to rest at an angle. The impact caused the table to shift. Cali, still shackled to it, was painfully pulled along for the ride. She lost her footing and slumped over the table, making sure to keep her hands open and pressed to its flat surface. "Don't shoot!" Cali cried out. "I'm not armed!" 4 humans appeared in the doorway, pushing their way past the broken cell door. Cali could not help but feel the urge to giggle at the sight of 4 fully grown adults dressed in Chester costumes while simultaneously wielding shotguns. Thankfully, there was a 5th person among them, and his face was familiar to Cali, even if his outfit was patently ridiculous. "Aren't you a little short to be a circus clown?" Cali joked. Dak Jabassam blushed, looking down at his manifesti garb. Then he approached Cali and greeted her with a kiss. "If we ever have kids, don't you dare tell them about this. Got it?" he said. "No promises," Cali replied. "You gonna unchain me, or what?" Aided by the Minutemen, Cali and Dak staged their exit from the district jail. They were pleasantly surprised to see that the storming of the facility had only ended with a few injuries and no fatalities. Favarian officials were left dumbfounded as the manifesti mob cleared out before the threat of violence could be made. Ruto and Teak were waiting outside. Teak was looking absolutely furious, and it soon became apparent why. "I wanted to go in guns blazing," Teak explained. "I was ready to just shoot up the place, but your human friends had a backup plan and made me stick to it." "A backup plan?" Cali repeated. The 4 Minutemen ordered the Alari to follow them through the dispersing crowd. Police droids were arriving on the scene by the dozen, attempting to take people into custody. The 8 escapees moved to a dark alleyway about 200 meters below the jail facility, where 2 humans and an Alari were waiting for them. Both humans were dressed in gorilla fatigues, adorned with an unfamiliar symbol. "AJ! Moriarty!" Cali cried out. "When did you join the Minutemen? And are you the ones who broke me out?" "I wish I could take credit for this, Cali," AJ replied. "Thing is, you got caught up in something much bigger. As soon as I started recruiting Minutemen to help with the jailbreak, the manifesti reached out and asked if they could join in. They said they'd break you out for a price." Cali, Ruto, Teak, and Dak all hesitated. I guess I'm not surprised. It makes sense," Cali said. Then she nervously turned to the Alari manifesti. "So you guys broke me out of jail. What do you want from me?" The Alari manifesti stared into Cali's eyes. He was wearing a bright purple cloak and a hood that concealed most of his features. The new Alari government is holding a trial. You will participate. That is the price of your freedom.